Hello and welcome to Network. My name is Sphumelele Zondi with your technology and social media news. Today I'm in the rural outskirts of Inanda. You'll find out what I'm doing here in a bit. Remember to constantly wear that face mask, sanitize or wash your hands with soap and water if you have that nearby. It is a SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. This week, our Twitter poll is asking you if you think children should be on social media. This as TikTok has said that they've removed millions of accounts they feel belong to children under the age of 13. Results of that are coming up later in the program. Firstly, here's what's coming up tonight. We have details on the high-tech facility the World Health Organization has said that they are constructing in South Africa. We find out about an initiative that helps startups that have ideas and solutions that are ready for market. And in our conversation, we go to Eswatini, where the internet has been shut down because of protests going on over there. Africa has had a massive shortage of COVID-19 vaccines, and a part of that could be that none of these vaccines that are being used all over the world were developed in Africa. Now, the World Health Organization is setting up a high-tech hub in South Africa to assist middle and low-income countries develop their own vaccines, or at least get a know-how of how to do this.
The World Health Organization is setting up a hub in South Africa to share advanced vaccine know-how with companies from poor and middle-income countries. The tech transfer hub could make it possible for African companies to begin manufacturing mRNA vaccines in as little as 9 months, the WHO said. At a briefing, President Cyril Ramaphosa called it an historic step to spread life-saving technology.
Through this initiative and others, we will change the narrative of an Africa that is a center of disease and poor development.
But the president continued his call for a waiver to intellectual property rules around vaccines, something that South Africa and India have been pushing for at the WTO.
It's been shown now that we just cannot continue to rely on vaccines that are made outside of Africa because they never come, they never arrive on time, and people continue to die.
The WHO said it is in talks with Pfizer and Moderna about participating in the hub. The two pharmaceutical companies have been manufacturing vaccines used in wealthier countries using mRNA technology. 2 South African companies have signed up for the hub so far.
A lot of us don't even think twice when we have to use an umbrella on a sunny day like today, or perhaps on a rainy day. But do we ever worry about people who, for example, are on wheelchairs and have to carry a lot of stuff while being in the sun or in the rain as well? In Inanda, Zuma says he came up with what may seem like a basic technology to assist wheelchair users with their umbrellas in unbearable weather.
I looked on what is it that I carry with me every day. It was a backpack. So that's when I started to design that. Can I design a special backpack that will have an attached umbrella? That when it's raining, it will hold the umbrella for me. Then when it's no longer, it will store it. So basically, that's how the idea started. How we got onto the wheelchair is the fact that when I did what is called market validation, it wasn't only me who suffered with the problem. I had a lot of friends who were using wheelchairs, who were disabled, who were using wheelchairs, and they were struggling with the same thing. They couldn't attend classes, they couldn't do their errands. So then that's how we landed here.
Siphiwe was shot when he was 9 years old. That incident put him on crutches and on a wheelchair. He says for this solution, he used software he was introduced to in his interior design program at the Durban University of Technology.
It is SketchUp, it is Lumion, and then it is AutoCAD. So those are the 3 softwares that I used together jointly to come up with an entire product. Because even in our course, that is usually what we use to design a space, design a house and everything.
The product is now ready for market, thanks to a program by the Technology Innovation Agency.
In rural communities and other provinces that we typically characterize as underserved communities, there's lots of people with ideas, but they don't have, call it dynamic ecosystems within which they can thrive and receive support. So they feel marginalized out of this. Now, the Grassroots Innovation Program is really intended to be a very nimble program that is able to reach innovators in underserved parts of their communities and society.
The Grassroots program has a prize money for those that have products to develop, but there is mentorship too.
Beyond the funding, we have non-financial support. We enable them to access our network of 18 technology stations throughout the country. These are technical centers that basically really help them to develop a prototype.
Another recipient of this assistance is a Bloemfontein native, Mbangiso Mabaso, who developed these edutech tools. Here, a learner can see a heart, lungs, a brain, and other body parts in 3D just by using an app.
I come from a public school and I never had such laboratory in public school. So what we wanted to achieve with Sisanda App Universe, this is what we call it now, is that learners should have a powerful science laboratory into their phone. And if anytime they're curious, they want to learn about human anatomy, they want to learn about other stuff, they just use the smartphone. The smartphone will project a 3D in front of them.
It has taken a couple of years, panel beating and mentorship for this solution to be ready.
Here eventually came in and helped us to refine the product, like how you see on my virtual background and all this kind of stuff. It was refined through the budget that we got from TIA. And now going forward, what we are trying to do with TIA, it's now that the product is here, the product can be used, the product can start benefiting and get more feedback from the users, from parents, from teachers.
Altogether, there are about 5 new tech solutions that recently received this kind of assistance from the Grassroots program of the Technology Innovation Agency. For a very long time, a TV set was just a tool to watch content, but it's evolved beyond that. Today, it's also a tool to play video games, consume the internet, and do other things as well.
With the emergence of new tech channels, viewers suddenly have an entire universe of programming choices catering to various interests, cultures, and desires.
There's going to be a blurring of lines in terms of how data is consumed. And sometimes what happens is it will transfer from a personal consumption experience to a group consumption experience. And therefore the television is so useful. It's for somebody to see something and then be able to share it with a larger group and a family grouping.
As consumption preferences change, people say they want more control over what they watch and when they watch it.
I prefer reading newspapers, which is traditional media, although as we're moving to the digital space, it takes a lot of time and we are on the move every day. Therefore, we really have to tap into digital media.
I consume content through mostly social media, internet. So, because I think that's where you have reference of the information, whatever that you're getting there.
Social media is accessible like at any time, anywhere, unlike with TV. With TV, you have to be at a certain place.
With digital babies, we don't want to be stuck in our TV rooms, living rooms. It's for like old people.
The increasing access means viewers are no longer slaves to their TV sets or what's scheduled in the TV guide.
Because of obviously the demands of the millennials and how they have just changed the landscape in terms of the power they possess. They know that for a news organization or a content producer to be able to be recognized, they need to have a solid audience rating in terms of who is consuming their content, what type of financial status do they have in society, how are they consuming this content.
As this demand for anywhere, anytime programming is growing, brands and distributors of content are stepping up their game.
All the way through to your very first flat screens, your plasmas. That then evolved to LCD TVs, which were lit with a fluorescent tube. From there came LED TV sets, where the guys got a little bit cleverer and changed the fluorescent tube to LED light and give you a better picture quality in terms of backlit TV.
They say they are manufacturing smart TVs that have built-in broadband capabilities to cater for different audiences.
TVs these days, they're smart TVs. You've got your YouTube on there, you've got your Showmax, even for the gamers, we've got Twitch on our TV sets. So the content that they're watching on their phones, they can watch on the big screen. Now the nice thing with our lineup this year also is that we incorporate what we call Magic Tap. So take your phone, tap it to your remote control, and guess what? You can now watch your content on your big screen.
While streaming services such as Netflix have seen a rise, analysts say internet connection is still a barrier to many.
I think for me, one of the things that we have to take into account within the South African context, right, is the limitation of the penetration of internet access. I'm seeing a sprawl of informal settlements there, and across all of these informal settlements, one thing that I'm seeing are satellite DSTV dishes on all of these shacks, if you will, right? So what that is speaking to, it's speaking to a level of access for people even at the lowest LSM levels to be able to access the DSTV digital content, right?
Some industry experts say, while still relevant, traditional linear viewing is declining, heavily influenced by the popularity of connected devices and social media platforms. Others believe that television still has a role to play.
I think the TV still plays a really important role, but we're defining it as being the leading screen device, not anymore in the traditional sense, because your primary screen comes in via your mobile phone. And that truly is the screen that is leading at this point in time, and not the television.
Analysts say, while consumers increasingly watch content on different devices and platforms, the TV set remains the overwhelmingly first choice among consumers.
It is the SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Use network at sabc.co.za on email. Welcome back. Now, the southern African country of Eswatini has seen pro-democracy protests again. Now, it's not the first time that pro-democracy protesters have taken to the streets in Eswatini. This time, those protests have turned deadly, and the internet gets shut off from time to time. MTN says the internet has been restored in Eswatini. They say the order to switch it off had come from the Eswatini Communications Commission. Some say it would come on for just a few minutes a day on some days. When it was on, people were showing pictures and videos of what was reported to be brutality by the state against pro-democracy protesters. Some have criticized neighbors like South Africa for being silent through this and other internet shutdowns in Africa. Now, to further unpack what's been happening in Eswatini is Dr. Shepherd Mpofu from the University of Limpopo. He has edited books and has done extensive research on internet usage in Southern Africa. Dr. Mpofu, thank you very much for being a part of our network and welcome to the program. Firstly, maybe if you can start by telling us, what do we know about what's been happening in Eswatini of late?
Yes, what we know so far is that from the 29th of June, the Eswatini Communication Commission asked network service providers to stop access to their customers of social media platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, and WhatsApp mainly, but other internet provisions within those networks seemed to work, but not work just fine, but with some difficulty or with some poor connectivity.
Dr. Mpofu, how important is the internet at this critical time in Eswatini?
We noticed that there's human rights abuses where soldiers are shooting at citizens with live ammunition, citizens protesting and burning down shops, looting and all these kinds of things. So the internet will be helpful in terms of citizen journalism and other forms of exposing what is happening in Eswatini to the rest of the world, especially these human rights abuses.
Why do you think internet providers agree to these requests of shutting down the internet in various parts of Africa, really?
The internet service providers in Africa face a huge dilemma in that they are largely indebted for their operations to the state. And they are major politicians or major political players that actually have shares within those companies. And it's important that they actually play ball or comply with what authorities say, because one, they will risk losing their licenses, and that means risk losing their revenues. And in some cases, we find that, especially in most African cases, that is, we find that internet service providers or mobile service providers will play along with what the government requires them to do, because they put profits ahead of lives in their operations. But what is happening now in Eswatini is quite interesting, because MTN is taking the Communication Commission to court so that they can be allowed to operate optimally without any disturbances.
Until the internet is fully restored, that's if that will happen, how are people in Eswatini managing to circumvent what's going on?
My contacts in Eswatini, they tell me that they're using VPNs, or in some cases the internet or social media access is epileptic. It comes and goes, you know. So it's a very terrible situation. But through the use of VPNs, people can circumvent disturbance that has been caused by the network service providers. So people are using VPNs to access the social media networks like Facebook and WhatsApp so that they can communicate with each other and also with the outside world. Because these platforms, again, are used for planning purposes, for notifying each other of what is happening within the country, and also for notifying certain networks or alliances or supporters of the Eswatini people's cause who are based outside the country. So it's quite important that they find creative ways of going through and going around these social media blockages.
Are we likely going to see these internet shutdowns go away at some point on the African continent?
There is no reason to believe that internet shutdowns are going to stop anytime soon, whether in Swaziland or in Africa in general, because this is one way where authoritarian states seek to discipline and engage and communicate with their citizens through shutting down the internet and then visiting violence upon the citizens. And you'll find that violence is actually one of the most effective modes of communication in Africa, whether by citizens or by those in power. Citizens will protest and protests will turn violent so that authorities may listen. Authorities would want to discipline citizens through the use of violence rather than negotiation and engagement. And shutting down the internet is part of this communicative ritual between citizens and the governments. And it's highly unlikely that we're going to see any stoppage of internet shutdowns, especially in countries where this has happened before and in countries where the rulership or the leaders have inclination towards authoritarianism rather than democracy and engagement with their citizens.
All right, Dr. Shepherd Mbofu, thank you very much for being a part of our network. Dr. Shepherd Mbofu there is with the University of Limpopo. With that, let's take a short break. News Network at SABC.co.za on email. Welcome back. I am still in Inanda. Here's what else took place in the rest of the world in the technology space.
3D printed veggie stacks could be coming to a plate near you. Barcelona-based startup Nova Meat is cracking up production as demand for plant-based products around the world soars. Developed in 2018, Nova Meat's technology replicates the muscle fibers of animal meat using 100% plant-based ingredients. Nova Meat is driven by environmental reasons, according to a business development manager who says one of the company's goals is to combat the impact of cattle feeding and defend animal welfare.
The idea behind this is to try to solve all these issues that the animal meat industry brings to our planet, to the animals, to our health. So that's why we are trying to bring to consumer more options of food for them to replace animal meat for something that's better for the planet, for ourselves and for animals.
Attendees of the Barcelona's Mobile World Congress got to try a few bites. With further developments in technology, Novameat said it might one day be possible to produce up to 500 kilograms of fake meat per hour. In India, Twitter is facing yet another sensitive issue. A Hindu group has filed a police complaint against tech giant's India executive over a map on its careers website. The website shows some contested areas as being outside India's borders. Specifically, the map showed the Jammu and Kashmir region, which are claimed by both India and Pakistan as being outside India. That provoked an outcry on social media this week, and a formal complaint accusing the head of Twitter in India and other company officials of breaching the country's IT rules as well as laws designed to prevent hatred between classes. But as of Tuesday, the map was no longer visible on its site. Twitter and New Delhi have been sparring over the firm's compliance with India's new IT rules for months.
%12 of our respondents say yes. The vast majority at 83% says no, children should not be on social media. And there is 6% of you who say you aren't really sure about this. And that's it. That's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network. That's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It is News Network at sabc.co.za on email. From me, Sphumelele, Zondi, and the rest of the team right here in Inanda, thank you very much for being a part of our network. Have a good one. Bye-bye.